the chit-chat that I'm going to have today is with one of my favorite band leaders of all time. One of my favorite concerts on the ship this year has been this band, this man. I think it's just the totally right vibe. You've probably seen him out and about, wandering around, being jolly and very fan-forward. He's out getting a cup of coffee. Oh, he's here, he's back, yes. He's out chatting somebody up. Where is? It's like, where is Waldo? Where is Dave Wakeling? Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Wakeling from the English Beat. There he is. Take a bow. You are the most gentlemanly English person I know. Have a seat, my friend. Unless you want to do a little routine dance, I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you know I got this bad knee. Anyway,
you know what I said? I haven't stayed awake this long for ages.
Yeah. Is it a bit early for you right now, this 10 o'clock gig? You seem alive and well and awake.
It's been a lovely cruise. I mean, I enjoyed the shows, but it's been very peaceful and restful in amongst the racket, you know. And it's a nice vibe on the boat. You can just stroll around, everybody seems chilled. It seems like a nice atmosphere, very pleasant.
I would say everybody, with a few exceptions, has been quite chill. What would an 80s cruise be without a brawl or two? Kid from Birmingham, England, up on deck 11, duking it out, you know? You know what I love about English performers, English rockers, let's call it, is that when American rockers like Steven Tyler or Tommy Lee, or name one from a rock band, when they get older, they're still like little boys. Yeah, it's like, you know, they don't really know how to speak very eloquently. God bless them. They never really grew up. Englishmen from the start, really, but as you get older, from Robert Plant to, you know, David Coverdale, to you, your British accent makes you seem eloquent and very Game of Thrones.
It's a great thing to hide behind, isn't it? You started with opening trout farms and stuff.
Well, no matter what degradation might have come upon you, you still sound, you know, glamorous.
It's odd that people just talking with an English fella and then I still have my accent, even though I've been in California for 36 years now. And a lot of friends, English friends, who've been in California for a lot shorter time, they already speak much more Californian style. I think it's because of the singing, because I sing so regularly, and I think that forms your vowels. So I think that's why I kept the accent. Plus, as you say, get you in places, can't it? Oh, you're English? Oh, yes, I am, actually. Oh, I say.
And doesn't everybody want to sort of not make fun, but they want to affect an English accent back at you like that's funny? Yeah. I'm from the South, and people like, usually from England, go, "Oh, how y'all doing down there?" It's like, hey, that ain't funny, you know?
It always makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
unless it's a really good version. Then it's like, oh.
I went to England last August with the family, and we were in Windsor Castle. And I went up to the first sort of guard-like person. I said, the beefeaters.
Yes.
And I swear it came out of my face, "Jolly ho!" You know, what am I doing? Step aside. Also, step aside, or we'll kill you.
I had a little one of those red suits, you know, like the guards.
Yes.
And I wore it to Windsor Castle, as you did at the time. And I got stung in the ear by a wasp. This was not what was planned, and I put my hand over because it hurt my ear, and the wasp stung me on my hand as well. So I was double wounded, and I was crying. And two of the big ones with the red coats and the fur hats came and took me into their first aid, and did next to nothing but stop me from crying, really. But I walked out of there like a war hero. Just back from the infirmary. I'm alright. Back on duty.
That's Dave Wakeling coming out the guards tower. My kids went up to the guards in front of Buckingham Palace, and we couldn't get very close that day, but they were doing the monkey dance, trying to make the guys, and then they stalked a couple of times.
There's a lot of videos of that, isn't there? On
well, look, not to at all denigrate the pomp and ceremony of your country, but this seemed a bit frivolous in the modern era to have all that stuff, the changing of the guards. It's very symbolic. I loved watching it. You don't agree with me, do you? We're into the royalty here, right? Not saying get rid of them. Just don't bring them over here. And we got our own kind of royalty.
It's a tradition,
yes,
but it's also an anachronism.
Yes.
It doesn't fit the modern world in the way that it might have done once. And I know the people in England, particularly the city that I'm from, Birmingham, has just made a 20% cut in all services.
And raised the tax.
And a 20% raise in
oh my God, yeah.
on a city that's already struggling with austerity. And so when you see pictures of King Charles and his $7 million hat, it starts to grate a little bit.
Yes.
Because people have been suffering in England forever. That's the monarchy's job, isn't it? People where they're meant to be. I think it's passing. Each generation in England seems less.
Yeah.
But then again, you wonder what would you replace it with? And there has been a good argument, I think, that putting all of your nationalist vitriol into a person is a bit safer than put it into a flag, which is what we do where I'm in America, right? That putting it into a person makes it a bit more cosy and comfortable and God bless you, man. Yeah. Whereas you start waving the flags, you're looking for someone to go and hit with it, aren't you?
Yeah.
Usually it's the next thing.
To me, it's like sports. It's like here in American football, we are able to symbolically, have tribal warfare, and no one really gets hurt except for an ACL every so often. But I think it's right. We need symbols. There's no doubt. We got our share of symbols in America. It's called the '80s cruise.
So you wonder symbolically if they did end the monarchy, what would replace it? What would be a focal point for people? And I don't think there is one at the moment. I don't see one in society that would take its place. Although I do have always thought, and one of the reasons I moved to America was to get away from that pyramid. You got the Queen on the top, then you got this, then you got this, then you got the bishops, then you got the 500 families that go to the school, and then you got anybody who's got someone in, and the rest of you. It ain't trickling down that far.
Well, maybe Buckingham Palace get turned into condos.
So it has kept this basically feudal structure of English society more or less intact. And I enjoyed it very much when I came to America, that anybody could be queen for the day.
It is supposedly a democracy. Well, welcome to Democracy in England 101, the chat. This is what we all want to do.
So back to the Magna Carta.
Tell us about the Magna Carta, would you? And that war in 1702.
Tell me my boy.
And is Game of Thrones really the precursor to all things that happened in England? Well, Hal, let's talk about your music and how much we adore you and why we're here. I told Dave that if you come to my interviews, they are free-flowing. I mean, does it matter? I'd just soon hear about Dave Wakeling getting stung in the ear and being held by a Buckingham guard.
But none of the other guests are cool.
Yeah, no one.
There's a first.
No one has been stung by a bee. 79, Birmingham, England, a working-class town. You and Andy Steele and Andy Cox and Danny Steele, David Steele, I'll get it right, Ranking Roger, form a band. And what was in the water that was happening with so much diversity in the music that you guys brought to the table from the very beginning, from punk to ska to reggae to rock to jazz, whatever. What was going on? What was the scene like there?
I think it was punk that started it all for us, and then after a couple of years of punk, that anger and the energy was getting a bit repetitive, and it seemed nihilistic. It also seemed, if you're complaining about things, you need to have some sort of alternative, but they were complaining about governmental issues or social issues, but they were as angry as the people that they were angry at. So it occurred to us that if the world was worth changing, you might as well have a dance. and see if you could cheer things up. And our notion of it was scapocalypso, which was, if we have a good dance, we might get through this, and if not, let's have a last dance. I'm stuck there. I'm still on the same spot.
You call it scapocalypse?
Yeah, scapocalypse. And we used to run house parties, punky reggae parties they were called. It was quite popular in London as well as in Birmingham. And two DJs playing alternate punk and reggae songs. And they were quite closely aligned with each other. They would often have reggae bands on at punk concerts, kind of like it was the chill out phase of the rave or something like that. And the lyrics were similar about social consciousness, about oppression, so there was a lyrical thing. And also punks and rastas had something very much in common, that they were both banned from most clubs in Birmingham. No punks, no rastas. Nice.
It's kind of weird to me to hear that. I mean, I think I've heard the history of it. But, you know, because of Britain's colonialism all over the world at that point, certainly particularly in Jamaica, you know, why were Rastas so...
I don't think it was the hairstyle, I think it was because they were black. They were just scared of them, I think that was what it was. But it led to these great house parties. And during one of the parties, if you played all punk songs, people would be bouncing off the walls for 30, 40 minutes, and then they'd all slink off for a rest. And if you played all reggae dubs, people would just end up leaning on the wall, nodding, which we call dancing on the inside. Yeah. But if you mixed them up, the dance floor stayed packed, and it went on and on and on. And we had some great guests at the show. Boy George came a few times. He was living in Birmingham. UB40 came, the Au Pairs, even a couple of Dexys Midnight Runners, but they weren't allowed to say. They would have got in trouble. And
that was an amazing scene, I think, for all of us to, you know, we hear the scenes that have happened here in America, certainly in New York or in Los Angeles or, you know, later in other cities like Seattle in the 90s, where there is a scene and you literally are around these people. Was it in Birmingham, your town, or was it when you went to the big city of London or Manchester, all these places?
This was right here in Birmingham, and none of us were in a group. We all were dreaming of being in a group. Oh, one day I'd love to be in a group.
Yeah.
You know, so it was just at the very start of it. So Andy Cox, the guitarist, was sitting in the corner of the room. I said, "Good party, eh?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "But one thing," he said, "what if you could get the elements of both DJs into the same 3-minute song? What would you have then?" And it'd be like a light bulb went off. And I thought that moment was the birth of the beat. So the idea was to get the excitement of punk, the seductive slinkiness of reggae, and try and combine them in the same 3-minute pop song. We wanted it to be danceable. We weren't particularly dancers, but we liked to dance. And so we wanted to come up with a kind of universal beat that was easy to dance to, even for people who couldn't dance like us.
Especially for people who didn't care about the art of beautiful dance, whatever their body was telling them to do.
Well, there was something about it. When I went dancing by myself in nightclubs, I would listen to the songs and I would hear an extra bit in the lyrics that I hadn't heard before. It was like the lyrics made more sense to me. Oh, I see what he meant. And ever after that point, when I'd listened to the song again, I got the inference. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I think it was because, especially, you know, teenage boys, we're more connected with our brain when our arms and legs are moving. Right? We're limbically charged. Okay, I feel calm now.
Don't make us sit still. Oh my God. Yeah.
That's right.
So you were, it's funny, if people ask artists, I do at least, do you come to the music first or the lyrics first? I love good poetry, but it's called music. And I don't normally get to the lyrics of any song, even Stairway to Heaven, until I've heard the song a couple of times. And I began to hear the lyrics. Bernie Taupin's got his second tier to Elton John's tunes for me.
Wow.
And that's okay, but the two finally get married. It's like you were starting out a populist to make your music. Your music came out of wanting to party and have dance fun and to be, with
But
people.
it seemed to me that after you'd been dancing, your mind was a bit more open. And so that seemed like an opportunity that you could get everybody dancing, and then you could bring up subjects that were bothering us and bothering. We weren't talking about anything that wasn't being discussed in every pub and at every bus stop, just the social issues of the day. And you could discuss them whilst everybody was dancing, and it was an easier platform than trying to do it as a political debate in a trade union hall or something. But it was lyrics first for me, and I did used to sometimes feel guilty about that. But only 2 or 3 weeks ago I saw an interview with David Bowie, and I was like, thank God, I wish I'd have known. And he'd said, primarily I'm just interested in the lyrics. He said, the music is what carries the words for me. And I was like, I wished I'd have known that was okay. I'd kept it as a guilty secret. So it had always been sort of lyrically inspired. Although I didn't write all of the songs, sometimes I was writing over one of David Steele's brilliant bass lines, which gave you more. But that was always my idea of it. It was a bit populist. And you had to be careful then, once you're on that path, to remember that you're on a stage. It's not a soapbox.
So you came,
Your shoes don't fit everybody, and your views aren't going to fit everybody, but most of us have got feet. So we do have something in common there. So you had to be careful about it. And I mean, when we thought we could get away with it, we tried to be a little bit subversive too. The idea was, musically, it was meant to start, it was the Velvet Underground jamming with Toots and the Maytals. And our public performance, we were the Monkeys, but John Lennon was backstage writing the lyrics. So we walked onto the top of the pops with that in mind.
Well, amidst you trying to meld all these different musical vibes, because as you said, you wanted to get everybody
inclusive
in the mix and not one vibe or another. And boy, did you explore so many different styles. But primarily that reggae and that ska came from that area for all of us Americans anyway, and you were kind of at the forefront. Did you come to the studio though with a bit of poetry, a song lyrically kind of blocked out, and the band worked around you with it and collaboratively? Surely you changed a word or two.
No, it's much more tortuous than that. The lyrics to a song would take a few months, usually. Well, the first bit would come in like 3 minutes. Poem. You just write down, it's like you get the message. But then finishing it off could often take a few weeks or a few months. And it started to fall into a pattern, I think. The first verse raised the issue. The second verse mentioned examples that you'd seen in other people's lives of the same thing, and then the third verse desperately attempted to see if there was any resolution, and that seemed to go through that, but it could get out of hand. I could spend a couple of weeks singing something to myself, trying to work out whether it was a comma or a semicolon, because it can make all the difference.
Only an Englishman would give us that little performance of...
So you wanted to try and include all of that in it, and I've always really liked really complex music that comes across as really simple.
Yeah.
I hate the opposite, really simple music that tries to show off as being really complicated. You thought that was good, watch it in a key. So I like it that it takes a long time to get something together, but it's presented in a simple way that it's easy to...
Well, take a song like "Save It for Later," one of the minor hits. But because I'm sure you've got examples of songs that took a laborious 2 or 3 weeks. and one that maybe pop right out, and sometimes that becomes a big hit.
Save It For Later was written a couple of years before the beat started. And it was really just a meditation for me. I found this tuning on the guitar by accident. I was trying to play along with John Martin records. And it turned out his tuning was Dad Gad, an old blues tuning, I believe. And I tried to tune up to play along with his record, and I got close, but the G string, I tuned that up to A as well. So it was D, A, D, A, D. Dad hard, not Dad Gad. And but there's something about when you played it, the whole guitar would vibrate and resonate, like this, and I would just play it round and round and round, sometimes for hours. And it really soothed my stomach. It was a really soothing feeling. And then the words slowly, quite slowly, and I just waited until words suggested themselves in the story. And it's an odd one because it's not really about anything. It's about not knowing. It's about being that late teenage, early 20s. People are starting to treat you and look at you as though you're an adult, but you still feel like a kid, and you're like, pretending to grow a moustache or something, you know. So that was what the song was about, if it was about anything, this searching to try and find your place in the world, and what the world was really about. And then, sadly, it was also combined with just a purely smutty high school poetry joke. Save it for later.
That was the cheeky subversive part.
Get that on the radio.
You got a good chuckle out of it when you heard that.
Oh, I did it lots of times. We had all sorts of things, words that would run together and make a swear word. I don't know why, but it just seemed funny.
We not only wrote songs, so that was an early hit. I mean, was that one that everybody said, oh, that's going to be the one we released?
No.
I don't think it was the first one. Wasn't it the cover of Tears of the Clown?
Yeah, no, it was written before the group started.
Right.
But when we came to the first album, we got the songs that we'd been doing, and I kept saying, oh, what about this? And it was too old wave Dave. It was not perceived as being new wave enough.
What year? That would have been 1980.
Well, 78 as we were putting the songs together, 79 March, 79 the first show. And Save It For Later didn't make it.
They said it was old wave or too old?
Yeah, Old Wave Dave. Well, this is the band.
Yeah.
The rest of them.
I'd have gotten rid of those chaps.
Old Wave Dave. Well, I didn't. They became Fine Young Cannibals and showed me.
They went off with
I think I was green on the second album sleeve. Right. But it had Old Wave Dave, so I tried again with the second album, Rotten. Still too Old Wave Dave. I'm like, God. You know, so before the third album, the record company said that's got to be on the record, and one person in the band still wasn't happy, but the record company basically bribed us to do it. We got an extra advance, I think, and or I said, oh, I'm going to go and make it myself then, you know, and so it was done fairly reluctantly, even in the studio. Me and the drummer played it. And everybody else said, oh, I'll just fit in afterwards. And so it was still quite reluctantly done. And now it has earned about a third of the whole of the band's catalogue.
Yeah.
Just stunning.
Did you look at them like, what were you guys thinking? Why did you give me so much grief? We should have had this first out on that.
Well, as it happened, it came out on the third record, right. I Confess, and those were the two main songs I think that really helped us with MTV and all of that starting. So maybe they did us all a favour by, no, hold that one back, Dave, that's your special. Save your trumps till the end. So it came out probably when it should have done, although I was irritated. The End of the Party was the same. I'd written both of them on the Isle of Wight, where we'd moved in 1977 to, they used to call it getting it together in the country. you know, if you go and write songs somewhere. We were also building solar panels for Andy's rather odd brother-in-law. And so it was good. So we had the evenings. First time I'd ever lived anywhere where you could look out and see the ocean, just like in these cabins. I'd never seen that before. I bought a fish tank with some goldfish in it, and I lined it up with the horizon. And the ships would be going by, and goldfish would be attacking the ships. That was good.
Oh man,
As I played Save It for Later for hours. The fun we had. We're also a bit sad because 77 in London, that was the summer of punk, wasn't it? The two sevens clash. We were only about 60 miles away, but in a different world, really. Our friends who lived in London would come down to try and rest up. What a rehab, eh? And we went often up to London to catch some of the festivals and shows. But it was quite rural, agrarian lifestyle.
Yeah.
And End of the Party and Save It for Later were both written during that time.
And you were hallucinating about weird goldfish attacking you.
Yeah. Go fish.
Being rural will get you. Well, so in a way you're right, the timing was kind of perfect. I mean, and it's interesting that after 3 albums and somewhere in your life you said something, or there's a dictum that 3 albums and you're done, you know, most
Yes, obviously.
but you know, not done, but just that was a period that was over. But that was when you started hitting MTV. You had paid your dues, in other words.
Yes, that's
as a band, and you had 2 albums under your belt. The third one comes out, and then your Darlings in America. Was that an overnight thing, a kind of inevitability in your mind?
It was a surprise to us, really, because I mean, we brought out our first single in October '79. It's number 6 in the charts, Christmas week. Our friends either loved us or absolutely despised us.
Well, the listeners didn't despise you.
And so we were used to success pretty quick. And then that first album, we had 6 top 20 singles.
In the UK. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then when the band split up, they brought out Can't Get Used to Losing You, went to number 3. So there were 7 hit singles out of 12 songs on the album, 1 more than Thriller. I held the record up for Thriller. So we were spoilt brats, and the fact that America didn't bow down at the first, we've heard, oh thanks so much for coming. It was like, oh, we got to keep going back to these towns, Dave, and building it up. Some of the band were like, oh, we've been once, if they don't like us, that's it. And so we'd more or less given up by the end of the second album.
You had toured America in 81, 82. You came on MTV at the time.
With the Police, all Talking Heads. Talking Heads picked us for the Remain in Light tour, which was fantastic. Yeah. So we worked really hard, we went down fantastic at the shows, and we were college radio darlings.
Yeah.
But we never touched the Billboard 200. Nowhere near. Not even near in the bathroom. Nothing. And so we more or less given up. Thought, it's all right for live shows, isn't it? But you're never going to touch the charts here. There's too much payola. And it saved us.
Did they just? Did America not catch on to the ska? You know, that's the new wave ska. To say it's a revival, we were not into it. Maybe
we were testing a few limits, weren't we?
Well, I don't know. You opened up. The Police brought us reggae and ska. You know,
I think
we were used to that.
We might have been the first black and white group on MTV, weren't we?
Well, early we had. Yeah, that's an issue until Michael came along in 1983 and opened the doors up for sure. But we had Garland Jeffries and Gary U.S. Bonds, and we had. People of color, but then you had, Boy George singing Blue-Eyed Soul, if you will, so people were doing that. I mean, and it's not up to you to really analyze why you didn't make it in America. You did eventually, and who knows what the secret sauce
I think it worked quite well, to be honest, because we were terribly jealous of some of the other groups who seemed to have had the knack and had a hit single and seemed much bigger than us, although we kind of thought we were better than them, and as every group does. And because we built up a nice thing with the college radio, and once the fury of the chart years was over, I think our music got left with a bit more integrity because it didn't get battered and hammered and marketed till you were sick of it. We never got on the radio enough that people would go, I can't stand hearing this again. So we never got burnt out in a way, and it remained with this kind of slightly underground cool about it. That then when we had a couple of hits on the third record, we'd still manage to keep a sort of integral reputation.
Well, you were alt to a fault, and people love being alt, except your wallet doesn't like it forever. You know, so, but you were darlings. I mean, and there's so many English bands and artists from overseas that were making it big on MTV, and in America, Duran Duran and U2 and the Police, so it wasn't like we had, you know, some wall. We adored that because they worked better on MTV than our American artists who weren't used to making videos, you know, REO Speedwagon and Styx and Journey, and they were not as hip to it. David Bowie, you know, was at the forefront of that.
I see, I never knew what was...
Our catalog early on, sans Charlie Daniels. Can you believe we had Dear Charlie Daniels on MTV early on? We were so hurting for videos, we would have taken anything. If you had an iPhone back then, you could have sung to it.
Begging to get on it, if only we'd known.
Did you even do a video hoping MTV would play it off of those first two albums?
What we did in England was we
Top of the Pops and things like that.
We never got to play. There's a Mirror in the Bathroom video, Doors Your Heart, a couple of others, but no, I don't think they were ever played in America.
I wasn't on the programming committee, but I don't ever remember an English beat video being rejected necessarily. But you're right, that's all in the upper suites of the record companies and the executives.
We lived in mortal fear, and I don't know whether it's even true, but we were told that there was this woman who'd got a list of 30 things that you weren't allowed to have in your videos if you wanted to be on MTV, except if you were Madonna, where you had to have all 30 and it was considered art. And so we sometimes didn't do videos at all because, or we did a lot of performance videos. We felt real playing our guitars and singing, and not in the middle of a street. But we tried to, as if that's what we do for a living. So we did a lot of that, and we tried to avoid being. So the idea is there's these two black and white dogs and there's this film running. You and Roger, I was ashamed. I didn't dare tell my dad that some of these 3-minute pieces of fluff cost more than his whole house had cost him his whole lifetime. I never dared tell him. 6 figures for...
Oh my God, yeah. And some director telling you to wear a bustier like Madonna, you said, no, that's part of the Dirty 30.
It was a blessing and a curse. It certainly was the thing, I think, that gave us that little bit of extra exposure and visually attractive and black and white people together enjoying themselves turned out to be a good gimmick. It wasn't meant to be that way, but it came across as attractive, so I think that really helped us get our word about. But at the same time, MTV the marketing of it started to take over, and New Wave became New Investment Plans, and songs were things that you looked at. You'd hear kids talking about that new U2 single. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
And it's good, but it's a cold medium, isn't it? It delivers everything, and you're just meant to sit there. Whereas you listen to something on the radio or on your record player, you can make up your own video. There's no list of 30 things you can't have in your own video. You don't have to fit into societal norms and that sort of thing. And you don't have to whittle down the lyrics and the intent of your song to something where you just look like a bunch of drug addicts running around in lights.
So you're saying you were resistant to the video?
Oh, we were yes, we were. Well, we did some, and we had some decent ideas, but we were usually terrified of the ideas that the directors would come with. Oh, the record, we've had this idea. And it's like...
kind of like Motley Crue meets something else. You know?
Well, it was a shame, because it's... I knew people in Birmingham, filmmaker types, you know, for next to nothing, they'd make a 3-minute film that could captivate. evocative. And yet for $100,000, all you got was a soap powder advert without the soap powder box. And they always put too much makeup on you. Always. Never you done that. Anybody seen that one? In between each other. And just round you up, Dave, just touch it. I was like, I can't move my face. I've got so much slap on it. No, don't worry about it. Well, let's have a look at the rushes here. And we don't look like, oh, I look like a clown. No. Once it's gone through the prop, trust me, Dave. And then it comes out on MTV and it's like, oh my God. So we were scared of that as well.
But did it feel like that was taking, you say, the marketing started to become, as you got more famous and you got a couple of hit songs under your belt, America has now embraced you. Of course, there's that inevitable, are we in control of our careers or are we not? I mean, you seem to have paid your dues for so long that you would be in total control. If you had a little hesitancy to the video, that's just one of the tools.
Well, we finally made it in America, and that was the doom. That was the death knell then. Oh, we've just become a stadium band. They're like all the others. This is corny.
You were playing for 20,000 people. How terrible that each of them bought a ticket.
They did. Two of the band wanted 2 years off because just couldn't stand being in the stadium machine. They thought it was the opposite of everything. And they did. They had 2 years off, started their own group, and started playing stadiums.
Yes, exactly.
You can't escape the stadiums, son.
Success again.
Damn.
Well, watching your show the other night, I've seen you many times, but I think I can really understand that how will what we do, which is a very intimate party or a vibe that has ebbs and flows during the show, it's certainly not a wall of sound. It's feel-good music, and how does that translate to 20,000 people?
It's a different job, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, for you, but you are so lively. I mean, this guy's got the biggest smile all the time, really, but on stage you're just pure joy.
It is a joy. I do feel joyful.
If I can't see you from the nosebleed seats, I wonder how that translates. Nowadays we have video screens.
It's a different job, and that's for sure, and you've got to be careful to know where you're playing. Like if you end up with your big stadium actions and you're doing them in a nightclub, you look really stupid. I've seen a lot of bands as you come back down from the stadiums, but they've still kept the big act.
Yeah, but again, now the high-def screens on either side, you see people watching those like MTV instead of the show right in front of them. Sometimes they're looking up at the screen there, and you got to watch to pick your nose at the right time. You can't see.
It is awkward. That is a new set of challenges, to be honest. It's just about connection. What was it? Ian Forster, I think, said they'd asked him. He'd written a load of books, very erudite, a master of the English language at Oxford University, but he sold lots of books to working class people. And they said, how do you do that then? You know more words than anybody else, but the common man likes your books. And he said, only connect, forget the rest. The bloke who knew the most words in the English language said, only connect, forget the rest. And so that was the idea of it, to use the words to try and draw the band closer to the audience and to draw the audience closer to each other. With the theory underneath, really, of mass consciousness. That's what we're going for, and it works. You get everybody dancing, and then I notice before the crowd sometimes that they're starting to dance in time. They're moving like one creature, and you see the vibe start to appear. It comes up like flames almost around the room, and you're like, oh, we're all in the right same space, aren't we? And that's where the magic starts to happen. So that's
Did you see that last show on the ship here the other night? That was the boat rocking. Wow, I really got him where I want him now. Wait a minute.
That was really difficult because it was very hard to keep your mouth to the mic. And so luckily there was a little metal strip on the edge of the stage, and I hooked my toes over it, and I just squeezed. I was like a parrot on a perch. It meant that my leg muscles were engaged all the way to my outside. at the end of the show, I was like, oh, we're just going back to the room for a minute. So I got straight in the back. Oh, loosened up. That was really
I
quite
did see you hobbling backstage. I didn't know your toes were cramping.
Yes, they were like that. So, but you're still smiling. My legs are on fire, but it's fun. But that makes it all worthwhile for me. It's the connection bit. And when it happens, and it usually happens in the first few songs, especially if it's our own crowd, which is a different game from playing to a wider audience, where you have to be even more open and inclusive to try and draw people in who don't even know who you are. Or haven't decided whether they like you in the first 40 years. So
some people are hard to get after a while.
You know, so that's the bit for me. I can sing the songs without thinking now. I do try and think about it, but I've got muscle memory. First line of Tears of the Clown.
Yes.
You can sing them. You can be thinking about something else as well. You've got to be really careful about that. The words are just coming out of this side. So you have to make sure that you try and stay focused and remember what you're there for, which is really for the audience to have a fantastic time. You know, at that point, if somebody's bought your record and comes to your concert, I think of ourselves as a service industry at that point.
Does it kick in at different points in different shows for you? Like, you know, maybe you are on autopilot for the first half, for whatever reason in your life, or the show sucks or whatever. But finally, you know, it's like, oh, you see somebody in the audience and they're smiling and you connect. Or...
Autopilot can happen about halfway through a show if it's not going well. Okay, I'll switch off, here's the lyrics. Or if it sounds bad, because I'm very, you know, I get tetchy. It doesn't sound just right and all this. So then I get irritated. But no, most of the time it's very serious at the beginning. I have a little thing that I do, and I've taught the band to do it. I look for 3 people in the crowd, one that side, one in the middle, who seem to be dancing and moving with each other and more or less with me, and I dance with them. I dance with them, and the line joins up between the two, and now we've got a dance going, and then it moves backwards.
I saw it happen.
That's the idea. And so, in a new lineup, as you've seen, smashing fellas, all of them, most of them just out of birth.
Oh wow.
The guy who beats it all. First time I've ever worked with people who've got degrees in their instruments. The bass player or the drummer used to be a mate who'd got a drum kit and a van. You know, so, this is quite different.
Talk about a musician like you who's been around, a band leader, if you will, who is able, by the way, to tap into new young talent. We talk about that a lot with groups that have a couple of...
musically!
Yes.
Musically!
Okay. Tapping into the youth.
Tapping into new young talent.
Can I be in your band? I'll take care of that sting. No, I mean, we talked a lot about groups that have been around for a while, a couple of original members, and when they get new musicians who, you know, musicians are playing their instruments like nobody's business. They've had 50 years, 60 years to learn it. And it really brings a new vibrancy to the songs. It's not overpowering, but, you know, a new snap to it's got to feel good to you.
To play with such great musicians, the songs have started to develop dynamics. They're starting to become orchestrated. There's nothing two-dimensional about it. Nothing's played too loud. In fact, it's a bit quiet on stage. Yeah. But that's what the PA is for. It can be loud out there, as loud as you'd like it. But it's we don't let the volume get out of control on stage.
Well, that's what I enjoyed about that show. It was kind of a relief from what can be a fun wall of sound rock show, but yours was just,
yes, you find the right volume and temperature for the room, and then as the show goes on, you've got a bit of space. The sound man can turn it up if the party's heading into some sort of crescendo. But I don't like it too loud. It can take some of the fun out of it for me. However, I mean, at 13, my favourite local bands that I saw regularly were Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. So it's not like there's certain types of music. It's got to have a bit of, 11. Some music has to go to 11. Ours works anywhere between 5 and 11.
Occasionally, being from Birmingham, you sound a little bit like Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, I can still do it, like, Sharon! No, I can still turn it on if I have to. It takes a couple of days when they get home, and then a couple of days, all time, you know what I mean?
I think it's that lilt at the top of like an old lady. Ozzy's like an old English lady.
I mean, it's an odd story, I don't know if it's true, but they say it was the first industrial accent. In the 14th century, in Birmingham.
Back to the Magna Carta.
There were 10,000 anvils. Blacksmiths, 10,000 blacksmiths in the city centre making chain, which was the chips of the 14th century, right? You got a good chain, hey? You're going somewhere. And so you imagine 10,000 hammers. And they say that the accent came from shouting over the top of metalwork.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
How elaborate or fanciful that might be, but it's a good excuse for such a horrible accent.
Oh, you English can make excuses for a lot of things.
We invented
bread pudding or blood pudding. It's a terrible thing.
No, that's right.
That's when you had the guy on the rack with the chain.
That's right. Yes.
Bleed him dry.
They invented the steam engine in Birmingham. Well, it had come from a pump in a Scottish mine that this fella had brought down to Birmingham, and some people in Birmingham put condensers and different things on it, and that was the birth of, because the pump out of Scotland could only take a little bit of water out of a mine over 24 hours. They added these bits to it in Birmingham, and that was the birth of the steam engine.
Taking notes, everybody? You will be tested.
So all I wanted to do was to apologise for global warming. Birmingham, England.
Thank you, England, for inventing that. The Dickensian period of England was industrial.
Dickensian period.
Yeah.
I think that's coming industrial areas.
Yeah, it is. But to general public here in the last few minutes, I want to move ahead to the next phase.
Yes.
Which, my God, who didn't love general public? And I would say at that point, you were starting to hit your stride with Ranking Roger on MTV.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, you really became, the English Beat guy is now in general public, and Ranking Roger brought so much great spirit.
The Tender video was well loved.
Yes.
It was the second video for the song. Nicholas Rogue, a producer, a director,
film director.
Yeah, his son had started making videos, and he just made one for the Bronski beat about the kid getting beat up. The kid getting beat up by his dad for being gay, and he's on the train to London. Everybody was affected by that video. Wow, what a powerful piece! And I thought, oh, that's good. And so he agreed to do a video, but it was his shout. He was going to be in charge of it if we wanted that Bronski beat effect. So we did, and unfortunately the script was about me cheating with people on the road whilst talking to my real wife, real daughter, on the telephone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
They just made up a
and then they made it a bit odder even, because it ended with me in the shower with this woman who was a lifeguard, and then she ripped off her wig and had got a crew cut and flexed, and she was like a bodybuilder, and I disappeared in the corner of the shower under the weight of this, and Miles Copeland, "No, Wakeling!" Miles Copeland said, "No, Wakeling, no."
You were with IRS Records.
We were, no way, he said. And it hadn't gone down that well.
Wait a minute, this was in the concept, or did it actually...
Oh, it exists.
Yeah.
No, it exists.
That's anathema to you. That's the nightmare video scenario for you, who didn't want to be an actor and a poser.
No, I know. And, it was shocking, it was striking, people liked it, but it was a bit embarrassing, still is. And so Miles Copeland was that against it. He said he would even pay to make another video for Tenderness. And so then he got the rights to call it too. So we ended up with me and Roger as kids carrying guitars. And it went the other way, the cute way. And then I think they just invented them, I'm not sure, but they got these special eye drops that made your eyes look really blue. So they had me on the top of a rooftop in Los Angeles and the sunset going, and it was my mom's favourite video.
Wow.
Oh, wow, David, your eyes look lovely in that one.
I didn't know I had a son with blue eyes. Who are you?
So that was her favourite video anyway, so I'm glad you didn't see the other one.
I want to hunt that one down for sure.
I think it's on YouTube. I've seen it a couple of times.
What did it feel like with that next phase of success? How long did you think you and Ranking would, and God rest his soul, I guess he passed away 3-4 years ago now, and was he a good collaborator? Were you chums or just partners?
We were good collaborators to start with, but like Lennon and McCartney, it started to become Lennon and McCartney, and so there was less collaboration, and I started to think like it's not going to work, and we carried on. After the last second album that came out, we carried on working, and you might as well have had my songs on one side and his songs on the other, so we stopped at that point.
Was he as prolific as you in writing?
Way more prolific. He's got 30 songs a day, and
I didn't think of Ranking Roger as a writing powerhouse. I would have.
he liked the machines, you know. He liked the programmers and machines.
He wrote music.
I've still never been able to use one of them. I'm a neo-Luddite in that regard. I only play on the acoustic guitar. That's where they get written. Well, actually get written in my head quite a lot, and then when I've got the idea of the tune that goes with the lyrics, I have to rush and get the guitar and go, there it is, yeah, that's it. And I always think I've written something really clever, and it always turns out to be G, C and D. Or G, D and C, hey, see what I did, so I'm always fairly...
There's only 12 notes.
Yeah, no,
you're doing half tone.
3 of them. You use more than 3 chords, you're lying. And they used to say in punk, something like that, if your set was over 40 minutes, you were lying. And if your song was over 3 minutes, you were lying.
Do you still feel the muse, and if so, when does that happen? And are you searching for it? Does it come to you?
It's usually when I get really upset or really happy or really excited. I get really emotional about something, either a personal situation, something on the television that sparks some social concerns, and that's when the muse tends to visit, when I'm already in that kind of mood, adrenalised perhaps, and then usually the ideas and the lyrics start to flow really quickly. The title, the point of the song, the scansion of the first verse comes as though it's a gift from somewhere, and then you have to dig in, or I generally have to work out what the rest of the song's about. But the first part of it comes, whereas Roger, he could write 30 different tunes a day, and
with lyrics or just music?
no, just the music, and the lyrics for him were slightly different. They were more kind of like word patterns that gave an atmosphere.
Right.
They weren't about.
It wasn't about
the proletariat revolution and the marches of 1714 that you brought up, you know. Most of mine were. So his were more like landscapes of ideas and intuitions.
Right.
And it was good when the two would work together. But when they were too separate, it didn't work for either of us, and Roger very much wanted to make a solo record. He kept going on about it, on and on and on and on. I don't want to make a solo record. And I said, well, the problem is, I said, if you make a solo record, you're going to put your best songs on that one, and give me the rest. I'm going to get from number 6 to number 10. And no, I've got plenty of songs. And I was like, okay. But he went on and on and on, and then eventually he said it once too often, I want to make a solo album. And I said, yes, and me. He said, no, I don't want to split the group up. I was like, you just have.
You just did. Thank you.
So we stayed friends for a good bit afterwards, but we did, in some ways, he was a teenager. He was 16 when he joined the Beat. I was as much his guardian as his co-singer, you know, and then he was a grown man by general public, and into the second year of general public, he got quite strong opinions about what he wanted to do, and so I let him do it.
But while that collaboration happened, I mean, you produced some great stuff. There's no way we're going to be able to go chronologically from then to when you reformed. And by the way, we call you the English Beat. So you got an issue with that at all? You just
not at all.
You just had to differentiate yourself.
They were going to. They really wanted to call us the Beat UK, and I said I'll leave the group. I'll just leave the group. And then the Australians came up with the British Beat. The British Beat, and so we never went there for 30 years. We only get 30 years for murder. 30 years they got for that. But we were in New York to meet the record company. Nothing had happened yet, and we went to a deli for breakfast before, which we'd never really done that much of before either. And I saw English muffins, which of course are not called English muffins in England, like French fries are not called French fries in France. French fries is actually a process, it's not the name of it, it's how the French fry things.
We prefer American fries.
I know, what were they called? Freedom fries? Freedom fries. I remember.
Free the fries!
Oh God.
The English muffin, yes, it's a
English muffin, which are called pikelets in Birmingham, of course, as you know. And so I said, well, there's something about this word English, I said, whereas the word British over here is like, oh, those redcoat bastards, you know. They'll be able to get the Irish to kick out for us.
You know they're coming.
But English, hey, you're English. I got a great-grandfather in England called Peter. Do you know him? Oh, yes. Dark hair, 2 legs, face, yes, yeah. I said, so there seemed to be something, a sort of affinity with England. I said, what about English Beat, if we have to? So the band came, oh, all right, it's better than the other two. We went into the record company and they said, we've got to do something about this name. And I said, what about English Beat? Wow! The marketing floor all fell off their chairs, and that was it. So
wow, magic! The English
done. The English muffins.
I was going to say the English muffins. That would have been great.
We actually wanted to call ourselves Beat Brothers for America. Beat Brothers or Beat Bros. You could have had either. And the record company said, "No, they'll think you're an R&B act."
Yeah.
And I said, exactly. And they said no.
Why not?
What we didn't know until that same period, we didn't know there was different radio, because we only had one radio, Radio 1, and we only had Top of the Pops. So everything that was in the top 20 was on Radio 1, and it was on Top of the Pops. So we grew up thinking it was quite normal to have the 4 tops, followed by the Rolling Stones, the Kinks coming up after the break, Diana Ross and the Supremes. And we had no idea that wasn't allowed. And it wasn't because we were so wonderfully advanced, it was because there was only one radio station and you're not getting any more till the King says, or Queen or whatever. And so it was all lumped in together. And it wasn't until around that same trip where we had to make a decision about the name that we didn't like what was on the radio, and the guy in the van, we said, can you get us something? He said, oh, you want a black station? I'm like, a what? And it was like, oh. We had no idea. I had no idea. So in some ways, I think we were quite lucky in England that by accident we got a fairly well-rounded education of American music, which people our age in America didn't really have access to.
I think that's totally true. That the Brits, if I can, totally understood the American songbook, the early American soul and Motown.
They call it a British invasion. All we do is listen to your songs, play them back, come over, they go, this is great. Yeah. I love you, Brits.
You gave us
your songs. We played a song, I think it was in St. Louis, played a concert at college and early on, and a girl after the show said, somebody's already covered your Tears of a Clown song, you know, but it's really slow. You can't dance to it.
I mean, how old do you think we are? You did that back in the 60s. I think that you're totally right. We didn't get it at all. We were so stratified. MTV came along and, you know, a couple of years into the kerfuffle about not opening our doors wide enough, Michael Jackson came along.
Yeah.
And then it was a place, then that's why we all love the 80s, because it was more diversified. It was an open, wide tent.
Very good point, because we do seem to concentrate now on the 80s festivals on the kind of, wow, we're having a great time part of it. And that is part of it. But during the 80s, black and white people were allowed to be friends at concerts that they hadn't been. Gay people were allowed to be gay in public without being beaten up on the way home. There were quite a lot of social changes. It wasn't just a neon party.
Yeah.
And I do sometimes regret that. Not so bad here, but do some other 80s events where it almost becomes cartoonish. And
well, it's not hard to caricature the 80s because of some of the more frivolous aspects of it, from neon and colors and hair and all that. But the music that, I helped the decline of Western civilization and your career, you know. But yeah, it was a place for the disenfranchised to feel like they were part of the party. A young kid in Iowa who's gay is seeing what's happening in New York or Los Angeles, and he sees people dressing up like him and the Bronski Beat. I mean, it goes on and on.
I would like to see more acknowledgement of that, really. I hope it doesn't get lost in the caricature. It wasn't clowning. I mean, there were a couple of costumes, but in England now, it's got absurd. You play an 80s festival, everybody's got their face painted and they're playing an inflatable guitar.
Silly English people.
I know I was loaded, but I don't remember any of this.
No, look, Benny Hill taught us that English people like to dress up and drop their hats and be silly on TV. We got this the Naked Bits TV show, the dating show, where the English people get totally naked and they show their genitalia. Like, come on, what's wrong with you people? I'm glad you're living in America now, right? Or are you, by the way? And we'll wrap this up here because we got to get off. Unfortunately, you've been here for 30 years.
Yes.
And you're a part of all the craziness that's going on.
Yeah.
And no politics here, but you know, sometimes you wish you were back in Birmingham, or do you still love? Yeah. They got high taxes.
It's a lovely place to visit, and it's a lovely place to come from. I was born into the death of the English Empire, the British Empire. My mom and dad, not my mom so much, but my dad was still convinced we owned the world and all the oceans. He'd been brought up like that since the 20s, he wasn't going to change now. We didn't even own the streets we lived in. But for him, we were the empire, nothing had changed. And I got a smell of it at school, a smell of dying empires. I'm getting it again. It happens, you know, empires come and wane and empires travel west. And it is. And that's what we need to, without any politics involved, we have to become a bit more aware of actually where we are in history. And for heaven's sakes, don't make the same mistake as the British and keep pretending that the empire's there when you know it's going away. You don't have to be the strongest person in the world, you don't have to be the world's policeman, it could just be a fantastic America. I mean, it is one of the best places in the world, some of the kindest people in the world, some of the most open people in the world. You can stop at a truck stop anywhere in America, sit down next to somebody, you can start a conversation.
From Dave Wakeling's mouth to our American ears, and that's why we're here in the middle of the ocean. Yay, we're safe. Before I say adios, because we got to he's going to be in the very back of the auditorium. Don't come up here. He will sign and say hello and give you a hug. Dave Wakeling, it's been a total pleasure. Thanks for being on.
Thank you very much.
We love you,
everybody. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being with you for the week.
I love it. Back in that corner over there.